This is the Unit 2 Property of Matter retest. Um, we're going to go over the test, listen to this video, and when you finish it, you will get a chance to retake the test. It's not going to be the same, but hopefully this will help you. First off, if you did not have a colored periodic table in the back of your notebook, why? If you did not put the metals, nonmetals, metalloids on that back of that periodic table, why? Because that would have helped you so much. Again, metals, nonmetals, and metalloids is a review from 6th grade, but it will be on your STAR test, so you need to make sure that you know it. So it says, in science class, 5 students are given samples and asked to do 2 tests on them. The observations they made from the tests are in the table. Select 2 students who most likely have a non-metal by clicking the appropriate boxes. And just so you know, there are some different, like you can highlight stuff when you're working on this format. So you might want to, just because it helps me remember, okay, that's a non-metal. So it says the sample reflected light and dented when hit with a hammer. So it doesn't say that it's brittle because it just dented it. It didn't break it into different pieces. And if it reflected light, that tells me that it could be metallic. So I'm going to say that's probably not a non-metal. This sample did not turn on when a light bulb and shattered when hit with a hammer. So that tells me it's brittle and it's also not metallic. So this one is probably going to definitely be a non-metal. This sample reflected light and struggled to turn on the light bulb. That tells me it's probably a metalloid because it still lit up the light bulb, but not very well. The sample did not reflect light and broke into several pieces when hit with a hammer. And that's almost exactly the same as the first one. So that is also my non-metal. The sample quickly turned on a light bulb, so that's a metal. It definitely is not a non-metal. So those should have been your 2 answer choices. A lot of kids missed this problem because it talked about 2 students and you only picked 1. So you also need to make sure that you are careful in reading. Plants perform a chemical reaction known as photosynthesis, in which light energy is converted into chemical energy in the form of sugars. The chemical equation for photosynthesis is displayed. Which statement accurately describes the chemical reaction process that plants undergo? Select 2 correct answers. Again, a lot of you are not reading all the way through, so make sure you are selecting 2. It says there are more carbon atoms on the product side of the equation there are on the reactant side. So I have 6 carbon atoms on the product side, and I have 6 on the reactant side, so I can cross this one off. A new substance is produced during photosynthesis because photosynthesis is a chemical reaction. That is true. The number of oxygen atoms is the same on the reactant and the product side. So I have 2 times 6 is 12 plus another 6. And then I have 12 plus another 6, so that is true. There are few hydrogen atoms on the product side of the equation. 12, 12, no. And then no new substance, no. So, hopefully, you picked the 2 correct ones. Using the chemical formula displayed below to complete the following statements by selecting the correct answers from the drop-down menus. In the chemical formula displayed above, there are blank different elements. So all I have to do is count capital letters. So I have an H, a P, and an O. So I have 3 different elements. And blank total atoms. So I have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are blank more oxygen atoms than there are phosphorus. So oxygen has 4, phosphorus has 1. So 4 minus 1 is 3. And that's all you had to do for that one. Jesus was conducting an experiment in science class. He took a flask and measured 50 milliliters of vinegar into it. He then measured 10 grams of baking soda into a balloon and attached the balloon to the flask, covering the mouth of the flask completely. Next, he put the flask with the balloon attached to on a triple beam balance and finds the total pre-reaction mass of his experiment. Finally, leaving the flask/balloon set up on the balance, he lifts the balloon and mixes the chemicals. How should the total mass be affected by the chemical reaction? We did this in class. We talked about this. You wrote about it. You should not have missed this question. So it says the total mass will stay the same since mass is neither created or destroyed by a chemical reaction, so the balance will remain level. Yes, that's what happened in ours. The reactants are being used up? No. Total mass will become lighter because one of the products is a gas and it's going to rise. We know that's not true because the balloon helped catch it. The total mass will become heavier? No. So that one was an easy one. Hopefully everybody got that one correct. All right, drag and drop to the correct. Blank is a small number written after an element symbol. So remember, if it's small, it's little, it's under, that is a subscript. Blank is a pure substance that can't be broken down chemically. That's an element. A blank is a large number in the front. That is a coefficient. All right. Mark true or false. If there is no coefficient in the front of an element or a compound, there is just one molecule present. True. If there is no subscript after an element symbol, then there are no atoms. That's false. There's one. There's always one. In a chemical reaction, atoms of sodium and chlorine combine to form salt. True. So that one was easy. Drag and drop the correct answer choice to each answer blank. Determine if each of the following is evidence of a physical or chemical change. So that is your chemistry gets pretty tough. We talked about color change as long as it's unexpected. Gas, usually that is in the form of bubbles. Precipitate is when you put liquids together and you end up with a solid. So like when milk gets chunky. And then tough is temperature change if it's unexpected. All right, so a new substance form, chemical. Something just dissolves, that is physical. There we go. If something is melting, that is physical. If it evaporates, that is physical. So that should have made it real easy, even if you didn't know what a precipitate was, even though we talked about it. That would be chemical. All right, the question has 2 parts. First, answer part A, then answer part B. How would elements found in the blue be classified if you had your periodic table colored? This should be super easy. Those are the metalloids, the non-metalloids. Here we go. It says, which of the following shows a list of physical characteristics that match the elements in the blue? Those are semiconductors. So I can cross off anything that is not a semiconductor. And that leaves me with this. This question has two parts. For first, answer part A, then answer part B. Part of the equation for producing nitrogen dioxide is displayed. Based on the information given on the reactant side, which of the following belongs on the product side? So you're just making sure that it's balanced. So I have 2 nitrogen atoms here and 2 oxygen atoms plus another 2. So 4 oxygen atoms and 2 nitrogen atoms. So 4 oxygen atoms, 2 nitrogen atoms. This would be 4 and 4, so that's not right. 2 and 3, so that's not right. And then 2 and 2, so that's not right. So this is the only one that had 2 nitrogen and 4 oxygens. Oh, oops, didn't mean to click that one. All right, which law best supports the answer to part A? And that is your law of conservation of mass, which is the only one we've talked about so far. This equation describes the chemical reaction that occurs during photosynthesis. How many total atoms does glucose contain? So C6H12O6. So 12 plus 6 plus 6 is 24. So on this one, we're just telling if it's physical or chemical. If I burn a piece of wood, that is chemical. You should know that mixing baking soda and vinegar is chemical, and then ice melting is just a physical change. Which of the following could be a possible scenario? For example, B, using the observations listed in the chart. So it completely dissolves. So stirring sugar in a glass of water would make it dissolve. Mixing salt and pepper is not going to dissolve. The salt would, but not the pepper. Stirring sand in a glass of water, that's not going to dissolve. And we know oil and water is not going to dissolve. So that was a super easy question. All right, 13. Using the table, complete the table using the descriptions. So the easiest thing to do first was to kind of go through here and decide if it was a metal, nonmetal, and metalloid based on the description. So this one says it's yellow, it breaks easily, and does not reflect light. So that sure sounds like a nonmetal to me. It's solid, reflects light, not a good conductor of electricity, but it doesn't say that it doesn't conduct electricity. So that would tell me it's a metalloid. And then this one says solid, thermal, and electrical conductor. So, oh, that one's a metal. It already tells us that. Okay, so now we're going to look to see which of these elements is a nonmetal. Is it boron or sulfur? So if I go up here, here's boron, it is a metalloid, and here's sulfur, it is a nonmetal. So my nonmetal is going to be sulfur, and my metalloid would be boron. So that one was not that hard. All right, so once you are done, you are going to schedule an advisory pass or a tutoring in the morning or afternoon so you can retake your test. Good luck.